Hey everybody, this is Aaron with Lasting Impressions Coffee. I hope you're having a good day. I wanted to thank you for joining today's discussion. If you remember last week I went over how I started back on the fifth cycle of Gomekli, which is the drug used to treat neurofibromatosis type 1 and specifically their plexiform type tumors, which are tumors that grow along a person's nervous system, causing nerve and musculature pain and damage. And for today's discussion, I wanted to go over my journey and why I started back on that exactly. And so what we're looking at right now is an x-ray of my spine. And after the so this is my first and second spinal fusions. And then this is going to be after my third spinal fusion. So this is the before picture. This is the after picture right here. And then we have some side views if you want to look at it as well. So you can kind of see here that, I'll look at this more in a second, but what I have highlighted or circled here is where one of the titanium rods actually snapped and broke off in the back. You would think that titanium is pretty strong. It is, but it is not stronger than bone. So I've had quite some issues dealing with these rods, as well as the spine on top of all this stuff. But I was about 5'1" before the surgery here from post-op, and then after that I got to be about 5'5". Unfortunately now, though, I did have the rods kind of sink down into my hips and kind of lock in place, so now I'm about 5'2", lost 3 inches since the surgery, which is what it is. But this is what we're looking at right now. Back to the front view. So when I was 6 years old, when I kind of woke up one morning and I was complaining to my mom about my back hurting and being in pain, which is strange for a 6-year-old, and I think she said I was also walking a little different. So we went and got that looked at, and it turned out that the tumor had wrapped itself around the spine and ate the bone, essentially eroded it, and it caused it to collapse in on itself. And so that's kind of why it ended up looking like this, that I was hunched over, leaning forward and to the left a little bit. Ultimately is what that's what caused that to happen. And so I kind of lived like that for a little bit, and I didn't have too many of the biggest health issues up until I got to middle school, and then it kind of started elevating pretty fast. But I want to go back to the point about this being like 6 years old. I was a pretty normal kid all the way up until then. I played lots of sports, was pretty active, running around, doing all that stuff, being a normal 6-year-old boy all the way up until this. And that's kind of the reality that we have for people with NF, is that they can go through life generally living normal, and then all of a sudden overnight their life changes, and then something like this, right, becomes their reality, and they have to navigate it. And I don't want to say that I was lucky enough to start this when I was a kid, but I kind of feel that way listening to some people's stories as well. But what we can kind of see here. So because the spine had collapsed in on itself, it was causing, as you can probably imagine, severe pain. It was making it difficult to walk, stand, sit, and all that stuff. So we had to do something about it. So that's kind of why we went in and did the spinal fusion to help lift my spine up off itself, because it was basically compressing in on it to relieve the pain, and that did work does work for the most part. But the first issues that I had starting with I guess what was going on in my back would have been right here. If we can kind of look, and you can see that's just going to be some screws that were put into my hip. The side view might get a little bit better with all this stuff kind of starting around when I was 6 years old. I didn't really have anything major up until I went on to the first time I was on chemo with the carboplatin for my optic tumor, and then that kind of stabilized itself. I didn't have any major issues really with my back until it hit 6th grade, and that's when I had these screws kind of put into my hip right here, because the leg was falling out of socket with the hip. and we need to do that to keep in place, or I wasn't going to be able to walk too well anymore. So we got that taken care of, and then we didn't have anything else until a year later. I guess anything else. It was gonna make it sounds like it was a lot later than it was. About a year later was when I had my first spinal fusion done. And that was gonna be the one of three. That would have been like in the springtime, and then in the summer I had the second one. And so that's kind of like what we're looking at right here for this picture. It's going to be the pre-op before this third one right here. And that's going to be the post-op, as well as this side view too, so you can kind of see even more of like the idea of what it would look like before. I was about 5'1" before surgery, about 5'5" afterwards. Since then, the rods have kind of slid down into my hip joints, and so I'm back to being a little bit shorter and hunched over a little bit more too. What's circled here in blue is just a piece of the broken titanium rod, which we can discuss in a second too. Okay, so it kind of third spinal fusion. Go through there. You can kind of see how my spine starts through here, kind of comes down to until we get to where the hip is, right about there. And that's where it's fused in, connected. And then you can kind of too see as well. There's the broken piece right there that we were talking about a second ago. And these keep on breaking because there's basically no bone in my back to support these rods and for them to fuse to and hold on to. Because titanium is actually not stronger than bone. So they just keep on eventually just snapping over stress and pressure over time, causing them to break. That's also what happened here too. You see how this one is a lot shorter than this one is too here. This one broke off and they actually had to remove it completely because it got a staph infection in it, and that happened in 8th grade. For that one, that was the year the Bears lost the Super Bowl to the Colts. It was a really bad day. My mother and I drove up to Cincinnati in the snowstorm that same day to help to get this all taken care of. Very sick, thought I might die. But thankfully I did not, and we're here today to tell you about it. But yeah, we got that taken care of and taken out, and that was missing all the way up until we got the new ones put in, and they all got removed. And then in the last one, so you can see here that we have 5 titanium rods here on this side, and this one we also have 5 rods. But this one here, this one and this one are different types of rods. These are used for fusions because you can see there that they actually have screws that are going into the bone. These ones are designed to grow along with you, so you can actually, they're called vector rods, and you can actually have surgery and have them essentially like released, and they can grow along with the person's spine. Whereas these ones are drilled into your bones. But I don't have any bone, so they just keep on breaking and snapping. And so I have these 5 in this one, and then since this last surgery, they also took out my tibia and put that in my spine or back to hopefully create some bone growth, because the cadaver bones weren't gaining life essentially fast enough. Or if you don't know what a cadaver bone is, that's just bone from a dead person that they use to help with like bone grafts and stuff like that to support bone growth in people. And the idea was that live bone would be stronger, which I think from my last x-ray when they had done back 5 years ago, they said they saw some success with that, but they also saw 2 broken titanium rods, which, going back to all this, they just keep on breaking because the tumor is active. And so the hope is with the mech that the mech will not only shrink the tumor, but it will cause it to become inactive, and then we can do something about these tumors, or I mean not about the tumors because they're in a place where they're inoperable, but we can do something about the spine and do some rods and stuff and get them to stop breaking. And then one other thing that I made is, if you were unaware, too, I have a little blog on my website. You can post different random things about from here to time. But I did one about some little NF related charities. I won't go through and read them all. You can go on the website and read about see which ones they are, and I'll leave some time here too. But I'll talk about a couple of them. These up here are kind of all ones that were part of this Children's Tumor Foundation, kind of, or rather that they were started by volunteers who are part of the Children's Tumor Foundation to start their own little charity, be a more local and do a little bit more closer to their community or something more specific too. Then there's some regional ones as well. And then you have the Neurofibromatosis Network, which is going to be one of the bigger, probably the largest one that we have for NF stuff. They do a lot of the policy influence, so talking to the legislators about getting things funded for NF, all that lobbying, all that fun stuff. And then you have some that are NF1 focused, NF2 focused. This one is going to be kind of like a Make-A-Wish for people with NF. And then you have some international ones, including one for people in India as well. I know that is a huge population, so I'm sure that it might be underdiagnosed, so if you want to get involved there and learn more about it as well, there that is. So yeah, thank you all for joining. I hope you found this helpful, informative, and if you want to do more, you can join any of these networks here. It doesn't just have to be the Children's Tumor Foundation, which is the one that I'm privy to, or you can come on and you can buy some coffee as well, and part of your donations will go to that. And thank you all for tuning in today. I hope you have a good day. Take care.